Day 27, gratitude, closing in. 4 days left. Today's gratitude popped up a little bit unexpected. I was having a conversation with some members. I coached the classes this morning, and then after the 6:30 class, so right around 7:30, was having some conversations with some of the members that were in class, just talking about different things, post-class chit-chat, and we started talking about music and then movement, and then we started, of course, where all good conversations go, started talking about food, and we were just talking about how they're universal languages, and I felt grateful for those today, and felt grateful for how much of a part they've played in my life and how much I get to enjoy them regularly. But yeah, I'm grateful for the universal languages of food, music, and movement. And, I feel like, I don't know if I bumped into anyone ever who doesn't like music at all. They probably exist. There's a lot of people on the planet. But I feel like that's one of those ones. You may not like the same music as somebody, but they all get a feeling from music, that is pretty spectacular. And food is kind of the same thing. We all eat. And then the last one of movement is you might not necessarily like it, but it's ever present, and we read and maybe not always feel accurately, could be incorrect, but we feel so much from body language, way people carry themselves, walk toward us, walk away from us, watching them kind of comport in the space around us. So grateful for those things. It's interesting to chat with different people about it. It all started because we were just talking about making a new playlist for the class. But the other thing that popped into my head today, I should have looked to be able to give her credit. I saw a really interesting Instagram post about the concept of resilience, and maybe some of you have seen it before, and how when you're being resilient, it doesn't always feel quote unquote like this, epic boss battle, hedonistic moment of awesomeness. Resilience, often resilience, I think the lady in the post said that it feels messy. That was really cool. And then they were just talking about resilience as applied to this concept of, what happens in the space between not knowing and knowing. And that it's not about, knowing as soon as possible, finding success. It's about spending that time in that space in the middle. I think they called it learning space. I should look her up to give her credit, but anyway, it's not my idea. We'll just start with that. And I just thought it was so interesting because what she was discussing is the more we can grow comfortable in that space between not knowing and knowing, the frustration of learning, the ups and downs of learning, sometimes the one step forward, two step back pattern of learning, moving toward a solution is challenging. It doesn't always feel great, but the more time we can spend there while we continue to make progress, I think is really powerful and an important skill that will help us continue to move toward knowing and maybe success. That's what you're interested in over time. I like that idea because I've found myself lately so frustrated over not random things, but smaller things, not big issues. But also in these moments, I've been having this feeling of, oh, I'm frustrated. This probably means I can impact this thing. I'm frustrated because when I really sit down and think about it, because I could have done X, Y, and Z to make this better. I can do X, Y, and Z to make this better. My frustration really comes from, I know the timeline's not going to move fast, or as fast as ideally I would want it to. So it was neat to see that post and then put that up against just some things I've been feeling lately and thinking about. But I know I've said this before. I like this idea that you really only get stressed out over, mostly over things that you have you have control over. And it really, for me, the more I've thought about that, it really is true. Health, diet, stuff like that. There are little steps I could take, and I get frustrated about them. At the end of the day, I'm frustrated, maybe not enough time, wanted to do work more. And I'm recently, and this ebbs and flows, right? I've been at a point where it's okay, well, What can I do tomorrow to set this up so I can have more time to do the thing that I'm frustrated about not being able to do right now, which is really helpful. So I thought it was a really interesting post. Great concept. How well do you manage the learning space? It's a great just like thought process for yourself. How well do you manage the time and the space between not knowing and knowing? Because I know for some of us, and at different times of our lives, that space in between is miserable. And oftentimes not knowing and just accepting, well, I don't know. There's a lot of, ignorance is bliss. There's real meaning to that. And when you're knowing, you feel like the champ. And that led me to think about what I really wanted to talk about here, which was a quote I heard once. I think this came from Terry Crews. And he said, success is the easiest place to hide. And I think about this quote from time to time. It's a really awesome quote. Might have even popped up before here. But this idea that success is the easiest place to hide. And someone once said to me, you're only as fit as your last workout. And I like this. I like this concept, right? It's scary because it's this always moving target, but you kind of got to earn it day to day. Now, that's not saying that you immediately finish that workout and then it doesn't have to have this pejorative meaning to it. This idea of you're only as fit as your last workout or success is the easiest place to hide. We'll get to that. It's not as if you finish your last workout and then you're back to zero. But I do think it's sort of like, we have this opportunity regularly to kind of quote unquote earn it, whatever the hell it is, day to day. And it doesn't always have to be a workout for some people. I just think it has to be, what is that next step forward? And I think what's funny about, achieving some sort of success that you would, mark in your life as that was a success. If that's the only thing you hang on to success, what's really interesting about it is you only move further away from it over time, in time. But if you're always stuck mentally on that thing, or you're always talking about that one moment, you never give yourself a chance to grow, right? You've latched onto aggressively something in the past. Now, I'm not saying like you apply for a job and on your resume, don't put things in the past that were great achievements or that you would point at and say that was, an example of success. But I think if you yourself just only latch onto that one thing and let that dictate how you view the world and what your capability is, that's probably the biggest part of this. You kind of stop growing, There's so much that your past self contributes to yourself now, but it's easy to hide in some success you have. It's easy to tout yourself, and because you feel good when you have that, especially if you get that external validation, that makes that feel even better, and you want to carry that forward. Because sometimes the path to getting there, being in that space of the learning space between not knowing, the path to getting to success, as they had said in this post, and that's why I thought this was so interesting, the path to getting there, the resilience, the effort, it's not always like wine and roses. Sometimes it's a really hard, and this can be enjoyable, but it can be a really hard fought path. Lack of sleep, tons of effort, letting go of maybe other special events in your life so you can focus on this single thing. But I think the more you latch onto that, you hide in the success that you've had in the past. One, you don't get to grow. Two, the other thing is, I think it's really easy to get resentful around other people in your life who are continuing to grow, because you're always pointing toward this thing in the past and you see them achieving these new things. So you'll start saying shit like, well, they did this today, but back when I did it this way and I did it this much bigger. But the point is like, yeah, that was in the past. What could you do right now? Another way somebody framed this to me once is like, you got to have another peak to climb. And maybe it doesn't have to happen immediately. Maybe you need a little respite. But I think there is a lot of value in just acknowledging, appreciating. I said to Cassandra today, we were talking on a walk, and we were kind of talking about this concept of just dogmatism and just clinging to things in the past. And I said, I can still really love what happened in the past, but I can also move on from it. Both of those things can happen. And when I've had those moments in my life where I finally let go of something in the past, like stopped letting that, or stopped using that one thing in the past to define who I am right now. Every time I've done that in my life, I've found something, I don't know what the right word is here, but I found another extremely fulfilling thing. But I will say, when I've hid in the success of the past, I slowly watch myself grow a little bit more resentful. I slowly watch myself stop growing in general. I slowly watch myself get a little out of touch with the present and what could be. And everything got measured against something that was only moving further and further away from me in the past. And there's other things too. I think that this quote meant when I heard it, as far as what it means to hide in success, the easiest place to hide. You can hide a lot of your worst qualities when you have one outstanding quality, especially if that one outstanding quality gets a shitload of external validation. It's so easy to do this. Oh, so-and-so makes so much money. And then you come to find out they're just, you would never let them in your house, or want to be with them alone or whatever. Maybe it's not something that terrible, but you guys all get what I'm saying. And I think this is a really important one, especially if you want to be I think what I would call a well-rounded person. This is something that matters to me. And, I've also heard this in different ways when you think about maybe some famous, not even famous, but admirable people from the past, well-known names from the past. You probably know so little about their quote unquote successes, but you probably hear a lot about their character. At least that's what I would like to have happen. I don't know. That's something I thought about today. So success is the easiest place to hide. Moving on to tomorrow, gratitude 28. Oh yeah, and I wanted to talk about a workout I did today that was also helped remind me of this, because I was starting this workout and was very confident that I was going to excel at it. It was an up ladder. So you do 3 reps of each movement in round 1, 6 round 2, 9 round 3. And, it was a 15-minute clock. It was movements I really liked: bar-facing burpees, pull-ups, and then moderate weight shouldered overhead. Had all the fixings for a great workout for me, and it just kicked my teeth into the back of my head. And throughout that process, it was just a reminder of you can't hide in that success of that. I used to be really great at pull-ups, or whatever. So it was nice. I'm glad that happened today. I was embarrassed for myself of how I performed in that workout, but it was kind of exactly what I needed. That kind of stuff has helped me be a little bit more consistent with the fitness lately than I have been in the past. So just accepting that. Anyway, a little bit longer than normal. That's okay. More tomorrow.